Hey everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Yak Tribe Kayak Show. My name is Heath, I'm the host of the show, and I'm so grateful to have you here with us today. Today, our guest is going to be Chad Hoover with Kayak Bass Fishing, KBF. You guys know him, you guys follow his organization, maybe some of you fish the trail that they put on, and we're going to have him on. But right before we get to Chad and get him on the phone, real quick, I know we're only 3 episodes in. This is our 4th episode. But as we're in the beginning stages of this show and on this podcast, wherever you're watching this or listening to this, I just wanted to reiterate every time for the first few weeks why we do this show. So this is an industry-based show where we bring on company owners, manufacturers, and just people who kayak fish and are part of the Yak Tribe fishing community. And the idea is to talk about the people and share their stories. And so my wife and I, Shannon, and our 2 kids at the time, we lived on the road in our RV for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And the whole goal was to go around, meet Yak Tribe members, fish, film, have a good time, and just sit around and listen to stories and highlight people. And now that we aren't on the road anymore, this is kind of, I guess, my way of continuing to do that, continuing to highlight the people and showcase their stories, because at the end of the day, we all know about KBF, we know about the tournament trail, we know about Action Hat and how you can mount a GoPro to the top of your favorite hat, and we know about the kayak specs and the Hobie and the this and the that and the pedal drive, and we know about those things pretty much, and maybe we might take an episode here or there and talk about some of those things, but for the most part, we are talking about the people behind the products, people behind the companies, the inventors. What's their story and what are they all about? So that is what the Yak Tribe Kayak Show is all about. Wanted to let you guys know real quick that this episode we are giving away some KBF swag that's going to be provided by Chad and by the KBF organization. So thank you for that. We'll have him on in just a second. Previously, we gave away some Yak Tribe swag for our first episode. We gave away an Action Hat for our second. We gave away a kayak fishing net from Line Cutters as well as a Line Cutters combo pack. We got some KBF swag. And here's the thing. I'm going up to Tennessee soon to meet with a kayak manufacturer to hear their story. And we will be giving away a kayak. And so how do you win those things? How do you get entered to win? It's extremely simple. All you have to do whenever you see something like this come up on your YouTube feed, on your Facebook feed, on your podcast, just leave a comment. Share it, do something so that I can see that you're engaged with our show, and that enters you to win. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, just get involved, leave a comment, review the podcast, do one of those things, and you will be entered to win. And the beauty of it is the people who entered from day one all the way up to now, your entries they'll always be an entry. And so it's not just this video, it's all of our videos combined. So I've picked winners for those things. Stay on the lookout, and I'm excited to get started with this show. And so let's go ahead and get Chad on the line. He just texted me. He said he is ready to roll. So let's get him on.
Hello.
Chad, what's up, man?
What's going on, brother?
Nothing much. We are live on the 4th episode. You're our 4th guest on the Yak Tribe Kayak Show, and I just wanted to take a second, man, and I know you're a super busy guy. I know you're just settling down from FLW and everything that KBF was doing over there, and so I thank you for taking the time for being on the show, man.
Man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We actually got a lot of questions. I went on Instagram Live last night, and I had people submit questions and what they wanted to hear from Chad, and so I've got a list of questions. I'm just going to fire them off at you here in a minute.
Okay.
And
all right.
Yeah, man, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
Let's do it. All right, so question number 1 is, who is Chad, and what did you do before you started KBF?
Well, I'll answer what I did before, and that'll kind of tie into who I am, I guess. I started out, joined the Navy when I was 16 in what's called the Delayed Entry Program. Went into the Navy when I was 17, retired in 2012 at 37. Started KBF in 2009 when I had 3 years left before I retired, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. I was on a really good career trajectory. I was a combat search and rescue swimmer, crew chief before I got commissioned. Then I was a pilot. I got NPQ'd for my sinuses, which stands for not physically qualified to fly anymore. Redesignated as a maintenance officer, got recruited to go start a combat SAR squadron one of the first ones that was active duty, HSC 22, the Sea Knights. Shout out to those guys out there that might be actively serving in that squadron right now. And then I did a tour as CODS, which is the prop aircraft that deliver all the people and supplies to aircraft carriers. That was an interesting and awesome experience all at the same time. You basically take those aircraft and you follow the aircraft carrier, but you're not on it. You're setting up on shore base and supplying it. So I got to travel to a lot of countries, do a lot of cool stuff, carried my fishing stuff with me along the way. And then in my last tour, I was the continuous process improvement. So I did Lean Six Sigma, theory of constraints, officer for the carrier fleet. I was stationed on the Theodore Roosevelt. Really an inspiring tour because when you're on a ship that's legacy is one of the presidents who had one of the biggest impacts on the way our outdoor industry, national park system and all that kind of operates now, and who was a true overt hunter and fisherman. That was kind of a cool thing, to be on that ship. Even though I was in the yards and going through a nuclear carrier overhaul at the time, it was just really cool to be part of that tour. It gave me a lot of foundational experience in how to run a business properly and do that kind of thing outside of just being a military guy. Retired in 2012, moved to Hendersonville, Tennessee to open up and run Hook One, the kayak fishing gear store that I ran for about 4 years before ultimately selling it because I really wanted to pursue my passion of being more active in the outdoors. And for those folks that are listening that decide they want to be in the outdoor industry but buy an outdoor store, you're not outdoors anymore. You're actually in a store all the time running it. And so, we did really well with that, and then, kind of moved on, decided that I really needed to focus on kayak bass fishing so that I could kind of unite the community. Did that to a great extent. And then for a couple years, I had some PTSD, anger issue things going on, which got me into a lot of, anytime you're kind of putting yourself out there, you're going to be scrutinized and you're going to develop haters and all that. And I tell everybody that's going down that road of being an influencer or a personality, it's not them, it's not a personal thing. They're taking a shot at the personality or the persona, and they're never going to tell you what you're doing right. They're always going to tell you what you're doing wrong. So you just kind of have to shoulder that and understand it. And I don't think for a couple years I did a really good job of that. I think that, it took a lot of my wife, Christy, centering me and my spirituality centering me and getting back into church and focusing on the things that really help you deal with those things a lot better. You and I had a pretty good sidebar about this several months ago, and it just really took that. And I think that I'm going to come out the backside of it having been better than if I had done everything right all along. I think that's kind of how life works. And I'm really excited about the future with KBF. I also think that I led KBF, I don't want to say in the wrong direction, but in more of a singular direction for a long time, meaning we focus very heavily on tournaments. We focus very heavily on marketing our brand partners and things along those lines because, obviously when you're a marketer like you are, that's what we do. That's your job. But it's also our job to set the tone for the industry from a community standpoint. And I think to a certain extent, kayak fishing isn't like an infant anymore. It's not even a toddler, but I don't think it's a fully mature adult. I think it's kind of like that shaky legged adolescent teenager right now. And we've all forgotten about the kids though. We've all forgotten about the new people that are just getting into it. And I really want to make a renewed focus on that. So going around my elbow to get to my back pocket to answer your question, who I am right now is I'm a guy that is the most blessed guy on the planet. I've got the coolest family in the world. I've got the best wife in the world. I got the ability to do what I wished I could do for a living. I made some major mistakes and it didn't cost me that opportunity. So I'm fully blessed to come out of the backside of it, intact and with the ability to do everything that I wish I would have done better. And that is to make a renewed focus on the community, the opportunities that we're providing for anglers, the recognition that they should be getting for the accomplishments that they make, and then taking a hardcore focus on education. I think that one of the things that I was inspired by FLW with is they invited us to go to the Costa Camp um, to be seminar speakers and to provide an on water for kayak fishing introduction to a lot of the kids. And that's ultimately where Christy and I had our accident a couple weeks ago. We were on our way to the weigh-in, and that's even put a whole lot more things as far as priorities into perspective. But I really was inspired by that, even though I was already kind of thinking down that road, to just double down and commit the resources and the time and the effort to focusing on youth programs, to focus on entry level kayak fishing programs, to develop, something of a curriculum that helps bring you from, even just being interested in fishing to getting into fishing to moving more into the basics, from the basics, moving into a little bit more intermediate stuff and then to advanced stuff and then on to, how to be a pro. And I think the one thing that I've been blessed with is a lot of really good opportunities that I got a lot further along than somebody with my same skill sets and same talents and abilities would even get today, just because of when I got into the industry. It's very difficult right now to break through just because there's so many people trying to do it. So I was obviously very blessed and very fortunate to be, like an early adopter and get in there early and to get to know a lot of the people in the companies and work trade shows. And I didn't have the ability to be successful through social media because social media didn't exist. So I see that as a double-edged sword for some people these days. You can get a lot of notoriety relatively quickly if you do a good job of promoting yourself on social media and you do a good job of managing it. But there's also a lot of noise out there. So there's a lot of competition in that space. So that's who I am, man. I'm a guy that got lucky, got on the tip of a surfboard hanging 10, didn't completely fall off, or if I did fall off, I didn't get run over by the wave and drown.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've got that perspective from having been around for a long time, having seen the ups and downs and the trends and gone through the trials and tribulations, and really just kind of backed away from a lot of the day-to-day, everyday social media pressure and focused more on the business and the opportunities that I can provide other people. And that's what I hope to be, man. I hope to be the things that fire me up are the emails, the texts, the DMs that say, man, you are the reason I got into this. You are the reason that I did this, or you're the reason that I did that. Like, I like inspiring people. I just do. The fuel that fires me is that feedback that people got inspired, or I got an email about 3 months ago and I actually screenshotted it and I save it. And anytime I feel like I've got a mountain on me, I'll go back and read it. And it almost brings, tears to my eyes every time I read it.
Mm-hmm.
With this guy that basically said, me and my dad hadn't talked in like 15 years. And I got into kayak fishing and he got into kayak fishing separately. And we ended up at a meeting together. Like, we didn't know the other one was going to be there. And then it was kind of awkward to not say something. And then now we fish together every day. We've connected again. They're tagging each other in social media. And both of us independently compared notes, and we both got into kayak fishing.
Man, that's awesome. And I could hear you over there, bro. I could hear you tearing up a little bit, man. That's real life, man. Man, at the end of the day, that's why we both do what we do. And I know we both have things that we can look back at. And I have stories like that. I've seen best friends created in the kayak fishing community, and like they totally disregard me, and they're like their whole own thing now, And
Yeah.
to see those relationships built and to see reconciliation happen, like you just saw between a father and a son, man, that at the end of the day, that's why we do what we do. That's why you do what you do. And so that's awesome, brother. And real quick, I just wanted to say, number one, thank you for your service for all those years. Appreciate you, Chad, all that you did and continue to do. And before we get to the next question, I want to say thank you so much also just for your transparency, man, and to be real. That's what this show is all about, just the realness. And yeah, I mean, look, man, people are going to watch this, and sure, there might be an elephant in the room, and like you kind of mentioned it, we had a sidebar, recently, and coming out of the back end of that, I have a lot a lot of respect for what you do and respect for everything you've done in our industry. And you are an industry leader. You're a big industry leader. And so you set the tone for a lot of things that we do in this industry. So thank you for doing that, man. I appreciate it. And so,
well, let me say something.
Let
me say something to you before you move on.
Sure.
So when we first met, for one, I had a lot of respect for the branding that you did. I even, when you first started, I reached out to you and said, "Hey, man, if there's anything I could do to help you, let me know." Yeah,
whatever. I think I sent you like a pack of decals or something, like way back in the day.
A pack of decals, and they're still on my desk, right? I literally have said, I don't know where I'm going to stick these things because I haven't had the appropriate spot yet, but I keep just carrying them around. Like, I'm going to text you a picture of them when we hang up.
Yeah.
Like, and now that I've got the headquarters, I literally have held them up to the wall. I've held them up to the spots where I want to put them. And I'm building this new kind of partner wall in the shop, and you're going to be at the top of it. And so here's the thing. When I saw Yak Tribe, I was like, dude, that is simple genius. Because everybody says if you're going to be an influencer, if you're going to get into this space, number one rule, build your tribe. Literally, they call it. So sitting here trying to think of the name of the tribe.
It's in a book somewhere.
Yeah. Sitting here trying to think of the name of the tribe, and counterintuitively, you don't think, well, just name it tribe, right? Because that's too overt. But you did it, and it works, and it crushes, and it resonated with me. It's resonated with a lot of other folks, and that's really what we are. But the reason I wanted to say this before we move on is there's a lot of noise out there with people that take shots at people who are doing work and doing the heavy lifting, and they're just armchair quarterbacks. And what they say to me, and a lot of times, if you're just a naysayer, you're irrelevant, right? You're just complaining to make noise. But when I saw you make your post, and I thought, how did he feel that way, right? I feel like I had reached out. But you actually observed me as a neutral party, right? Because we weren't friends enough for you to know the backstory for like the guys that do defend me were at that time. And so to me, the reason your post that you made resonated with me is because you had credibility. If you didn't have credibility, I wouldn't have wasted my time responding, right? If you hadn't set the tone right and a proper example and been a good father and husband and all those other things, I wouldn't have cared, right? So to me, I was already I was already down that road, and I felt like some of the stuff that you were saying, you were judging me based on past experiences. That's why I reached out to you. So I just want to say, for one, thanks for being open enough to actually hear the whole story. Two, for being willing to be, man enough to go back and do an update after we had it, full course discussion, because that's the one thing that you don't see these days. So I got a lot of respect for the fact that you do that. A lot of people go out and bash you, and then if they find out what they said was wrong, they'll never go back and correct themselves, or they'll never even come close. They'll never even, like I have a lot of guys that'll bash something that they heard third party or fourth party, and then, somebody will correct them on it. And then they go, oh, my bad, not me, but just someone. Actually, here's the fact. And then they just delete it. Well, they don't undo the damage that they did to a person's reputation. They just say, oh, well, if I just unsay what I said, then it's not. But it's not. You actually had the wherewithal to go forward and say, hey, listen, I'm going to give this a better. You didn't come back and say, nothing I said was true. You came back and said, I got a different perspective,
right,
giving this guy the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to move forward, right?
Yep.
And that was what I needed, and that was perfect.
Yeah, and I'm gonna step off my horse for get off the horse, but that's what men are supposed to do, man. And honestly, that's a very that's a biblical thing, man. You go to somebody and you have the conversation and you move forward, man. And so, yes, I have a ton of respect for you. Thank you for saying that. And it's all about unity and not division. And so that's what we're both all about. And so,
yes, sir.
Hey, so moving on to these next ones, we're gonna fire these ones off here. What was your very first kayak?
My first kayak was technically a P-row. I grew up paddling P-rows and little small, something that would be considered like if somebody paddled it today, based on the new definition of kayak, they would call it a kayak.
All right, what was your first thing that you? What was your
true kayak? Yeah. My first real roto-molded sit-on-top kayak was an Ocean Kayak Frenzy. It's not called a Frenzy. It wasn't called a Frenzy then. It was called something else. It's what they call a Frenzy now. It's like a little short. Basically, it would float, get me across channels in Corpus Christi, so I could wade fish, and then I would paddle into skinny spots I couldn't get into with the boat. And it was small enough that I could stick it on the right side of my center console. And ultimately, and I've told this story, a number of times, I moved up to an ocean kayak drifter, and I was using that. And I used to change my lower unit oil on my birthday, so I'd always remember hey, it's your birthday. That's an easier, rememberable day. Change your lower unit oil every day. And plus, it was one of those things where it's like, hey, it's my birthday. I changed my lower unit oil. Now I need to go run it. So it was like a birthday ritual to go change my lower unit oil and then go fishing. So I went out there to change my lower unit oil on my birthday because a habit is a habit, and it makes you go, oh, I got to do this. And the lower unit oil and the grease gun was still sitting on the transom of my boat from the year before, from never having taken the boat out in a year. That was because I got so obsessed with kayak fishing that I owned a boat and it hadn't been out of the driveway in a year. And I said to myself, why am I paying for this boat to sit here and the tires to dry rot and it fill up with leaves when I'm fishing out of a kayak and killing it? I sold that boat, and I did take one little soiree. A buddy of mine named Kevin Finn started a company called East Coast Skiffs. Now it's East Cape Tactical Skiff, or East Cape Skiffs. Now it's East Cape Tactical Skiffs. He made a boat called the Gladesman, and because I helped with the design process, he gave me one for the cost of materials. So I had that for about a year and sold it. So I haven't even owned a boat since then, except for that one year soiree with the Gladesman. And honestly, man, I took it out 3 times, and a buddy of mine used it more than I did. And then I sold it and said, yeah, I just love kayak fishing. I got a lot of buddies with boats. I was moving around a lot with the military, and I knew I was going to relocate. And I relocated to Tennessee. I can get everywhere I want to go with the boat or with the kayak. I'm not opposed to owning a boat. In fact, I may own one in the future just so that I can take the whole family out at one time, right, because I do love being on the water. But so I'm not an anti-boat guy, but I just got into kayak fishing and got obsessed with it. And I've got, I was going to school at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University while I was in the Navy. I got really intrigued by design and started working with stuff like that. Met Luther Cyphers before Yak Attack really existed and got to be really good friends with him. So I've gotten a lot of enrichment through that relationship and through being part of the design process and the product launch process and watching a company be built and, exchanging ideas and sharing ideas. And so, yeah, my first kayak was an Ocean Kayak Frenzy, and then it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Nice. Yeah, man. Yeah. Humble beginnings. He didn't have Hobie pedal drive back then.
No. Well, it was bad.
Yeah,
it was. I flipped it probably 4 times before I upgraded to the drifter.
Yeah,
just like looking up and reaching back for a rod, and a wave hit me the wrong way, and just whoop, I was out.
Yep.
And the seat sucked. It was one of those like metal dog leash clip hook ends kind of thing.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It slid around a lot, and you never could get it quite right. And the drifter was the same way. And and I'll tell you, the first time I saw a kayak that was designed as a fishing kayak that had a fishing name, I walked into Appomattox River Company, and they had a Tarpon 140 from Wilderness Systems, and it had nothing on it. Right, it was just a basic deal. And I said to the guy that was managing the store, like, what's the best deal you can do me on that boat? And he said, well, we're asking $550. It was used. We're asking $550, but make me an offer. I was like, I'll do $450. He's like, done. So I bought it. I then turned around and bought a paddle. I upgraded my PFD, and I kind of consider that where I really turned the corner. I had done some big stuff in the drifter. I caught a Kobe offshore, caught a big old we length girthed it. It would have been 276 pounds for a sandbar shark off of Sandbridge. I also got lucky to be in some of the best places at the best times. Like, I'm kind of like the Forrest Gump of fishing. Like, I was in California and it was blowing up. Then I was in Texas and it was blowing up. Then I was in Virginia and it was blowing up. Then I came to Tennessee and it blew up. So did I contribute to some of that? Yeah. But at the same time, I was in the right place at the right time. Like, people are like, how do you know Kayak Kevin Rick Burnley and Corey Ruth and all those guys in Virginia. I was like, I was stationed there. Well, then how do you know Jason Stock and this guy and this guy and this guy in Florida? I'm like, I was stationed there. How do you know Dean Thomas and Scott Knoll? And like, literally, if you really look at it, the history of kayak fishing, I had the ability to be in and be around the kind of the OGs of fishing, where none of them got to be around each other except when the tournament series started. But I had the ability to be around all of them in a different capacity as the sport was kind of taken off. And now those guys are all like, you know, really well known and editors of magazines, and, you know, have had really successful social media careers, YouTube channels and things along those lines. And I was just kind of there, you know, right place, right time. Well, I tell a lot of kids out there, you know, luck favors the prepared. You know what I'm saying? So if you're prepared and you hustle and you grind, and I did the math on it, and I went back and kind of looked through my records. I used to log everything like incessantly. And like I logged fishing days, but also logged why I didn't fish, because it was kind of an accountability thing. And I had over 400 trade shows in 14 years. And being at those trade shows, you get to meet a lot of people. You get to hear the questions people are asking. You get to meet the reps and the company, you know, people. And frequency and repetition is the number 2 rule of marketing. The number 1 rule is to be known before you're needed. But I was also frequency and repetition. I was always out there. People always saw me. I burned up a lot of vacation time standing at trade shows and working for free and hustling and grinding. I met a lot of people, but I kept putting myself out there in the right place at the right time to be known before I was needed. So then when a kayak company said, hey, we need a guy to ask questions about kayak fishing. Who's that kayak guy? Chad Hoover, right? Who's that kayak guy? Chad. So, you know, I see a lot of people right now looking for shortcuts. You know, they'll ask me, hey, man, I see that you vlog. I see that you do YouTube. I see that you work hard in social media. You do the tournament thing. You got TV. You do this. You know, what do you think I should do?
Exactly, bro. Oh, man, that's the thing.
And I'm like, what is your goal? I want to do what you do. I'm like, well, then you just answered the question.
Yeah.
You see the things that I'm doing to be at the level of success that I'm at. If you observe it, that's what I'm doing. There isn't a secret formula. There is no easy way. You can't do one of those things and have the level of success that I've been blessed with. You honestly have to do them all. And then you get to a point where you get over the hump enough that then you can be more selective. How much of this do I do? How much of that do I do? But like, for example, I stopped blogging for like 2 years. I used to blog my butt off, right? Now I'm going to go back to blogging because I do feel like it's a key connective tissue to the youth and to the folks that are just getting interested in kayak fishing, and I can answer a lot of the questions that they're asking. If 5 people ask me a question, there's 5,000 that didn't have the opportunity to ask me or take the time. So if I can write that blog post that answers those 5 guys' questions or gals' questions, then I can answer it for the 45, you know, the 4,995 that didn't ask, right? Whatever that scale is.
Yep. And that's the reason for the show too, to get people like you on and to talk about this stuff, talk about business. And that's the thing. I get those messages too, and it's, you know, hey, I want to like live in an RV too, so like how do I do exactly what you do? And man, I've been coding and building websites and selling MySpace templates since I was in 8th grade, you know. And like developed in that industry. And so it's hard for me to be like, here's all my secrets and like, and do it that way. And I guess I kind of I'm taking the same path too, man. Like I think I did my first.
I'll pull the veil back. You know, I had a Trojan horse. My Trojan horse was, I was very interested in art. I'm an artist. I like to draw. I like to paint. I do that well. And I haven't done it in a long time. But I found a way to marry my artistic skill sets with my pursuit, and that was through photography. And so I worked very hard at my photography, and for probably 6 years, I did all of Wilderness Systems, a lot of Binion Branches, then Adventure Technologies, then MTI, then NRS, then all these other brands that I've worked with over the years. I did a lot of their photography. And, you know, I can give you an example. In 1 year, in 2011 or 2012, Wilderness Systems had 4 catalogs. Let me rephrase that. Confluence had 4 catalogs. They had a whitewater catalog. They had for Dagger and Wave Sport. They had one for Perception. They had one for Wilderness Systems. They had one for Adventure Technology. So 4 catalogs. Of those 4 catalogs, I didn't do anything for the whitewater world because that wasn't my space. But for the other 3 catalogs, they had 2 photos in all 3 catalogs that I didn't shoot, right? And so I brought to the company a value for something they would have been paying somebody else for. Mm-hmm. And I see this way too much in the industry now. A guy will go out and establish a relationship with a company with a particular skill set that gets him over the wall or behind the wall with that company. And then 6 months into it is like, okay, so now this is what my skill set's worth. What are you going to pay me? And I hate to say it this way, but that's just not how it works. Like, you've got to get to where you're not providing a value. You got to get to where you're invaluable.
That's right? I was literally just about to say that. I was about to say my number one secret in like working for companies and every gig I've ever had is to make myself invaluable. And so that when I am, if I ever am in a position that somebody wants to fire me or I want to do something else, or like, what do we got to do to get this guy to stay? You know, making yourself invaluable.
The best thing that ever happened to me in my kayak fishing career is when the first offer I ever got, because I was, for one, I was task saturated at the time. I was killing myself. And what they wanted in exchange for what they were willing to give wasn't worth it, is I turned down the offer. The first offer that was ever made to me in a professional capacity, I turned it down. And within 4 hours, they had doubled the product offer, tripled the cash offer, and came back and said, and we'll also make you the face of the brand. So I literally said no to honestly, Heath, and I'm not, beating my chest here or bragging or anything. I said no to an offer that most people, even today, 15, 16 years later, would jump over they would flip over backwards to get right now. And I said no to it. And when I did that, it was based on knowing what I was worth. They wanted me to do 10 trade shows and they wanted me to do this and this and this. And I just sat down and said, okay, what is my time worth? So I looked at it as, what is this really in compensation? And it would have been like $3 an hour. It was nothing. But I also said, okay, the other thing is, if you had done this, this, and this, and agreed to do this and this and this for me, I could say I'm willing to do it because I'm going to get it on the backside through the exposure, through the promotion, through the marketing of you promoting me. And then it's a I scratch your back, you scratch mine relationship. So they came back and gave me all of it, But the best thing that ever happened to me is I wasn't willing to just give it up after I had. But here's the thing. That offer came 4.5 years into working with that company, right? It came that long into that relationship. And so many people these days are like, okay, I got to replace my salary in 4 months, 5 months, or be on track for it. And then I can do this. And they call me every day. Every day. Like, when I say every day, I'm not talking about a figure of speech. I'm talking about every day, 365 days a year. And there might be one day I miss, but then there's also days that I get 12 of them. Hey, man, I make this much a year. I want to replace my income, and I want to be in the outdoor industry like you. And I'm only saying this because that's what they say. And then I say, okay, well, let me break this down for you. I was an officer in the Navy on track to make $140,000 a year. I was making 126, 127. I got a promotion that I turned down. And then I got out and I made $37,000 a year with 2 kids and bills, and had gone through a divorce and had a bunch of stuff. But I backed myself up against a wall to where failure wasn't an option. And I say this a lot of times in my seminars. I say this a lot of times one-on-one with people, but I'm like, you will never, this isn't in fishing. This isn't everything. You will never have everything you ever want. And I'm not talking materialistic. I'm talking holistic. You'll never have everything you ever want if you're not willing to risk everything you have. And so for the glamour and the glitz and the things that people think that I'm some fat redneck that just fell into this, I went from making $126,000 a year on the backside of a career where I could have coasted for another 10 years, padded my retirement, to walk away from that to go make $30,000, $37,000 a year with 2 kids, running a store, working 20 hours a day. And I did that for 3 years before I even gave myself a pay raise to get over 40. And then 2 more years. And I still don't make anywhere close to what I was making as an officer in the Navy, but I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. I'm doing what I love. And there was a trade off. But too many people assign a dollar value to happiness
Mm-hmm.
and a dollar value to fulfillment and a dollar value to status and a dollar value to something else. And so my papaw was one of the biggest influences on me in my life. And it's this weird little, he passed away in 2000 or 2 years ago when I was at he passed away while I was at a tournament at the end of the year on Toledo Bend. And he said to me one time something that he had all these little one-liners and colloquialisms, little country wisdom. But he said to me one time, if you can ever figure out how to get paid to do what you think about doing at work, you'll never work another day in your life. And when I was in the Navy, the last 7 years, I was obsessed with kayak fishing. All I thought about was kayak fishing. And I said to myself, because that thing just kept popping in my head, if I can figure out a way to do this for a living, I'll never work another day in my life. Now, I'll tell you, Heath, and you know this because you're an entrepreneur as well. If you're an entrepreneur, you never go to work, but you never get off. So there's a trade-off. You know what I mean? But I risked it all, man. I literally, with 2 kids and a Lean Six Sigma theory of constraints, high-level certification that's worth about $100,000, an aeronautical engineering and a professional aeronautics degree from Embry-Riddle, 2 classes, and I got a master's degree, a cushy job in the aviation industry if I really want it. I rolled the dice and went after what I wanted. And that's what you got to do. Or you're not willing to put that much work and effort and energy into it. And if you safety up, you're just not gonna do it. I was a bull rider, believe it or not, when I was in the Navy, like early on. I had grown up around it. I always wanted to do it. I was really good at it for a guy my size, and I couldn't ride a bull right now for one turn as heavy as I am. But I mean, 100 pounds ago, I was 178 to 185 pounds. I was in really good shape. I was a rescue swimmer. But the one thing that I realized about 7 or 8 years into it is the kids that were killing it, the younger guys, were the guys that were built for it. They were shorter, lower center of gravity, all those other things. But they also had the mindset that they were willing to get their head stepped on to not get bucked off. And once I realized I wasn't really willing to risk it all for success, and I safetied up, and when I got in a bad situation, I'd pull my rope or I would bail, then I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing that. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
And
yeah.
So in this thing, I 100%, bet it all. And I'll be honest with you, man. A year ago, when I needed to get out of my house because this company was such a pressure and strain on my relationship, we didn't have the money to get a headquarters. We didn't have the money to get all of that stuff off the kitchen table and out of the living room and out of our bedroom. But we also didn't have the ability to not do it. So I know I say this sounds corny, but I work best under pressure. Like, I bet it again. I bet it on I will make this work. And by putting myself in a position where I don't have a choice but to make it work, then I don't have a choice but to make it work. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yeah. No, man, I kind of have a similar story for those who have followed my journey and followed my story, man. I mean, I was 21 and I was making that year I was doing $86,000 a year and just doing web development. And I let that go, man, because I wasn't doing what I wanted. I let that go for making, and I started making whatever I was able to pull out of my savings. And that's what I ended up making. And that whole journey, so when someone is asking that question, and I don't want to discourage anybody, and I'm going to make this comment and move on to the next question. I don't want to discourage anybody, but here's the truth, because somebody needs to say it, and you basically did, Chad. If you're asking that question to somebody, I'm all about helping people get to where they want to be and providing resources and things like that, all about it. But if you're at the point to where you're asking somebody, how do I do what you do because I want what you have, you are not ready to pursue and endure what it takes to be an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, whatever it is you're trying to do at the time, because that question right there signals, it's a red flag, that you have a lot more searching to do and to figure out why you want to do what you do. Like, why do you want to do what I do? Why do you want to do what Chad does? I invite you with open arms to come and do it. I'm excited for you. But if you're asking, how do I do what you do because I want to get what you have, you're on the wrong journey right now. And so you might want to take a second just to reassess and see what's going on. Would you agree, Chad?
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something, and you might not want me to share this, but this is what you get when you bring Chad Hoover
Go ahead.
on your show. I just refer to myself in the third person, which makes me want to kick my own butt. But
Sure.
like, I called you up when you were at Raccoon Mountain. You were stationed. You were camping in Tennessee, and I was like, "Hey man, we need to get together." Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hey, feel free to tell me to pack sand if you don't want to answer this question." I said, "But how are you monetizing what you do?" Right? Not because I was wanting to know how you were doing it from the standpoint of emulating it. I had respect for the fact that you were doing it, and I like exchanging those ideas with other grinders, right? So I said, "Hey, Heath, don't take this the wrong way, and feel free to tell me to pack sand." I said, "How are you monetizing what you do, and what is your real job, or do you do this full time?" And I hope you're okay with me sharing this, but you said, "Man, I'll be honest with you. I sell decals, I print decals. My wife and I work. I pick up whatever consulting jobs I can." And you said, and this is the part that kind of gave me it actually just gave me goosebumps again. Christy's sitting right here. Do I not have goosebumps tomorrow? You said, "Honestly, bro, I just do whatever I've got to do, and I work as hard as I've got to work to make it happen. And I just don't think about it that way. I just think about it like I'm living the life I want to live. I'll work as hard as I've got to work, as long as I've got to work to be able to do that. And so far it's working. And as long as I don't allow failure to be an option, it's not going to be." And I was like, hell yeah, So that's what you said to me. That's where you earn my respect. And too many people that call and have this conversation and I have to get their mind right are, like you said, they're at the wait to do something phase, but asking the question, how do I get what you got? Here's what I say to everybody out there that's listening. And if you're one of the people that's ever asked me this question and I gave you the Cliff's Notes version of the answer because you weren't ready yet, but here's what you do. Start. The hardest step on any journey, whether it's a mile or 10,000 miles, is the first step. The first step in the direction you're heading. And most people suffer from paralysis of analysis. They sit there and try to figure out how to do something so long that they never do it. So just do it. Done is better than perfect. And just do it. Just start grinding and make adjustments along the way. It's way easier to have a sailboat with a rudder than it is to try to overhaul a motor and sit there and crank it forever and it's not firing, right?
Yep.
It's just so much better to make a little bit of tweaks and just start with something. Figure out what your skill set is. Look at the person who's doing all the things that you want to do and say, out of all those things, which is the one thing you think you could do the best? Perfect that. The other thing that I see happening, and you're doing a great job of this, is find one relationship or two relationships and work very hard to cultivate those. I think of myself in the world of sponsorships almost like a polygamist husband, right? I've got all these wives, and you got to treat them all to the point that they don't want to leave, right? And if you think about a sponsorship like a relationship, and you think about it like a job, then you'll be more successful. A lot of people think of sponsorships as a one-way relationship. The company gives you something, and then they get out of it what they get out of it. And that's not how it works. It's a grind. It's a hustle. And, I see a lot of this. A guy gets 5 sponsors, and every time he makes a post, he posts and tags all 5 sponsors. Or a gal gets a sponsor, and every time she makes a post, she tags every sponsor. Well, imagine you were a polygamous husband, and every single time you posted a picture of one of your wives, you posted a picture of all 5 of them. Would any of them ever feel special? Hell no. And guess what? Eventually all 5 of them's leaving you because none of them ever feel like, now I know that's a bad analogy with the whole polygamy thing, but it's the best way that I can think of to articulate it. You've got to treat each sponsorship and each relationship you have like it's a relationship, because it is, and you've got to do the best you can to make each one of them feel like they're the only relationship you have.
Sure.
If somebody ever starts to feel like they're second fiddle to everything else you have, or if you get to the position where you can tier it like I have, then they understand what they're getting at the level that they're at, and those expectations are both set forth, they're maintained, they're managed, and they're very well cultivated. Most people, though, get a sponsor, and as soon as they get a sponsor, they're off to the next sponsor. Like, okay, so I got this one, now I need to get that one. And they're just sponsor collecting. How many people do you see on Facebook with 15 pro staffs listed under their, like, what do they do, right? They got 15 pro staffs listed on there. Their real job is they're like an accountant. And there's nothing about an accountant on there, but it says pro staff that, 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 pro staff that. And then I go, okay, cool. Let me look through your profile a little bit. But I don't see anything about any of those companies unless you're marketing all of them. So for me, my advice to people that are getting started is get one good relationship first and let that anchor your
And
understanding.
don't ask for a
of
sponsorship. Just build the relationship.
Exactly.
Just build the
you're
relationship.
way better. You're in a way better position when you're killing it for a company and they go, Chad, what can we do to get you to do more? Because you're killing it. Than you are saying, all right, I really need you guys to figure out a way to pay me for this amount of something you can't even quantify yet. You got to become indispensable, not disposable, and you definitely don't want to become noise.
Yep. Good stuff, man. And I got one last. This is an easy question, man. We've been talking about some serious stuff here, some deep stuff, and man, this is good stuff that people. Man, this is why we do the show. People are listening to this, and I hope that something you're saying, something I'm saying, they benefit from it. And so this is from this is @Kahuna_outdoors. His name is Mike. He's out in Louisiana, and I don't know if you do this already, but he just wants to know real quick, possible KBF tournament on the Sabine River.
So the Sabine River is basically
Sabine River.
Yeah, the Sabine River is basically the south end of Toledo Bend. It comes out of Toledo Bend and goes down into the Orange, Texas / Sulphur, Vidor, Louisiana. All that. That's actually where I grew up. I grew up in central Louisiana on the east side, but I used to go fish Toledo Bend, and I fished the Sabine River quite a bit. Right now, we actually have No Man's Land, which is a free tournament that's going on that is up and down the Sabine River and Toledo Bend. So he should check that out. If you go to Tourney X and just search Free for All, it's a free tournament, free for all. It's a challenge-based event, and it's based on the No Man's Land area of southwest Louisiana or western Louisiana. So that's one that's going on right now that's kind of an ongoing, goes all the way to October 31st. But we have some plans for some things in the future. There is an event on Toledo Bend in 2 weeks on the 23rd of August, which is the upper end of the Sabine River. It's not truly the Sabine River. The Sabine River Authority has jurisdiction over both. But yes, we do have some stuff planned on the Sabine River in the future. Definitely not on the schedule for 2020, so I'm sorry to say that. But yeah, we got some stuff planned down the road for the Sabine River. But check out the Free for All for sure.
All right, perfect. Well, Chad, look, man, we were running out of time here, and your time's valuable, and so I appreciate you, man, for being part of this show and for just being real, transparent, saying hard things, speaking to tough subjects. And so I hope that both your community and well, it's all our community, man. I hope that both KBF and Yak Tribe and every other kayak fisherman or people interested in kayak fishing find this episode and listen to it. It's going to be close to an hour. And I hope it benefits the people listening to it. So I appreciate you, man. I know we're giving away some KBF swag for this episode, and I will let you know who the winner of that is. So thanks for providing that as well, bro. I really appreciate
Absolutely, man. Sounds good. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Look, I'll see you soon. I'll see you around soon. And side note real quick, I have been thinking, and I should just hang up after I say this so that you can't try and convince me to do it. But I have told a few people like Chris Santoro and Jess Mitchell who fish KBF some tournaments and trails, said, you know what, I'm a saltwater guy, but I have been thinking once my calendar here clears up to go to a KBF event and film just not knowing what to do, like trying to catch a bass.
I like it. Do it.
Yeah, man.
You should fish the Redfish Series and qualify for our national championship down in Florida. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, someone just asked me about that yesterday. Hey, look, man, I appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon, man. Thanks, Chad.
Sounds good, man. Thank you, brother.
Yep.
Have a good one.
You too. All right, guys. Well, that was Chad from Kayak Bass Fishing. Thankful to have him on. This show is going to run about an hour, so thank you for those who are still here with us at the end. And I hope that something we said and something we talked about finds you find value in that. We talked about some tough things, and maybe we sounded, or maybe I sounded at one point a little bit critical, especially about the part when I talked about wanting things that other people have and then asking them how to get that thing and to do what they do. I don't mean that in a discouraging way whatsoever. In fact, I encourage you, and I look for those questions. And anybody who's ever asked me that question on a personal basis knows that I'll do everything I can to help you get to where you want to get. I'm all about helping people get to where they want to get. But what I'm trying to say is that if the question is, how show me what you do so that I can do that thing because I want what you have. Everybody wants different things, and I can guarantee you that if I showed you how to sit down and code and do that thing, look, there's things I still don't know how to do, and I got to fake it till I make it. But it's taken me a long time to learn those skills, and so I'm unable to be like, here's all the things and the years of coding and database building, and here's how I got to where, and so here's how you learn that, and here's how, and then when you have that, here's what you get. And so everybody has different dreams and desires and passions and things that they want. And so my encouragement to you would be, what are you good at? What do you love? Because you probably don't love building websites. I love that. That's why I've been doing it for so long. And so what do you love? Okay, now how can I then assist you in helping you to get to where you need to be in that industry so then you can obtain X? And I don't know what X is. Is that more time with your family? Is that traveling out? Is that living in an RV? Is that, I don't know, fishing KBF trails, every single month? I really don't know what that is, but I'm so down to help you gain the resources that you need to get to where you want to be. That's what Yak Tribe's all about, spreading our resources, helping each other out, and doing life together. And so, guys, thank you so much. Make sure you enter to win some swag from this show. All you have to do is share this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel that you found this on, leave a comment, leave something, leave a review on the podcast, just letting me know you were there, and that's what's going to enter you into winning some swag. And so soon we have some very, very cool things to give away, so stick around with us. Thank you guys for watching the 4th episode of the Yak Tribe Kayak Fishing Show. My name is Heath. Our show drops every Monday at 6 p.m., so I'll see you next Monday.